Started. So welcome once again, everybody, to the Canada Specialist Program webinar series. Our first update today is with Martin from Adventure Canada. He is Adventure Canada's Senior Account Manager. When he's on board, he's also a Zodiac driver and a member of the expedition team. Martin, good to see you again. For those of you who don't know Adventure Canada, can we just kick off with who is Adventure Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be here and welcome everybody from the UK. Adventure Canada is a small ship expedition cruise company. We're Canadian owned and operated, family run, and been in business since 1987. So we take our passengers out on the Ocean Endeavour, which is our ice class vessel. And we take up to 198 passengers on board. We specialize in the Arctic, as indicated by the massive iceberg in behind the ship there. And we get around on those zodiacs, one of them you can see in front, which allows us to get into these really remote places.
Oh, it looks absolutely fabulous. So we'll just start off first with, can you please tell us a bit about what's new for this year?
Yeah, absolutely. We just launched the second part of our 2024 season, and I just thought I'd showcase a couple of the trips that are new or changed. And so the Atlantic Island Odyssey, I was on a variation of this in 2022, but for 2024, really fantastic lineup. We've got Sable Island, which I'm going to talk about in a second. We go from Newfoundland to Sable Islands. We go up to Cape Breton, over to PEI and stop into Charlottetown. We go up to the Magdalen Islands. We stop into the south coast of Newfoundland and finish in France. If from the UK, it's not that far from France, but also from Newfoundland, it's not that far from Saint Pierre and Miquelon, the French islands off the coast of Newfoundland. So that's Atlantic Island Odyssey in late June, early July 2024. And I just thought I would show you a photo here of Sable Island. If you're not aware, it's a crescent moon-shaped sandspit island off of Nova Scotia, and there are about 500 wild horses roaming here. So you can see our guests from from the last time we were there, going around the island, and you can see a few of the horses here, one of them in one of the ponds. There's also about 500,000 gray seals that come here to breed every year. A really magical place. It's often shrouded in fog. Quite an interesting place to go and visit. And then the other trip that we have for 2024 that's new is our Newfoundland and Wild Labrador. It's a Torn Gap Mountain adventure. So we're heading up from Newfoundland, up the west coast of Newfoundland to the coast of Labrador. We'll be stopping into a number of places on the coast of Labrador before the Torn Gap Mountains, which are absolutely stunning. This trip does finish in Iqaluit, so up in Nunavut, and there is a charter flight, which is important to know, from Iqaluit back down to Ottawa. And I'm just going to show you a picture here of the Torn Gap Mountains. If you weren't aware, it's one of Canada's newer national parks, and absolutely stunning. No one lives here. There's a bunch of brown bears and black bears and polar bears, but no people other than the park rangers for the park here. Really beautiful fjords that we travel through. And another little update, we've changed and rebranded our High Arctic Explorer trip into Greenland and Arctic Canada, and we've added an extra day. By popular demand, people wanted more time spent up in Lancaster Sound in Telleruptiup Amanga, which is a really beautiful place to see polar bears. And so that is a big draw for that trip, the Greenland and Arctic Canada.
Oh, absolutely amazing. Loving those images as well. And we are talking about, much more remote parts of Canada that we don't normally see. So absolutely amazing. Can you also just talk about where else Adventure Canada goes?
Absolutely. Well, we're expanding every year where we go, but this is the main operation that we run in the summertime. So from June to October, we have all of the different trips in 2024 that you can see on the screen here. So we start on the east coast of Canada and work up into the Arctic, and the Arctic is our main focus. The Northwest Passage trips are the big ones. Those are our Canadian signature experiences. This coming summer in 2023, we actually start over in Scotland. We go from Scotland up to the Faroe Islands, to Iceland, and over to Greenland. And that's how we alternate our seasons each year. We start in Europe and work over to the Arctic, and then we start on the east coast of Canada and work up into the Arctic. And we have other various trips that we do overland, but this is the bread and butter for Adventure Canada.
That is amazing. Like I said, we're used to seeing maps of Canada, but maybe not these parts. And so those trips are just absolutely amazing. Martin, I know Adventure Canada has a big focus on giving back. Can you just tell us a bit about what you're doing in terms of sustainability?
Yeah, absolutely. We were looking at our energy usage back before the pandemic in 2018-19. We did an energy audit, and from that, we created a regenerative travel tourism plan. So instead of sustainability, which is keeping things the same, we wanted to rebuild and build back for the areas that we visit. So we strongly believe that travel can really make the world a better place. So we have big commitments for 2030. We commit to being carbon neutral. We commit to zero waste operations in our office. And speaking of giving, Adventure Canada every year gives quite a lot back from the profits that we do make. And we commit 30% of those profits towards cultural empowerment, education, youth programs, and to grow local employment in the places that we visit. So there's 4 different pillars of this plan, and I'll just touch on them. We have climate action and conservation, very near and dear to our heart, of course, conservation for these areas that we visit, and making sure that the wildlife is protected and that we are very conscious of this wildlife. And then the other 2 aspects are cultural preservation and revitalization, and community wellness and economics. And for over 30 years, we've been hiring local guides, hosts and staff for in the communities that we visit on board the ship. So all of our trips are well represented by the Inuit staff that and from the region that we visit. And as part of IACO, we really believe that responsible travel is at the forefront of what people are thinking about when they're thinking about booking travel. So we're working towards a positive future for our planet, and we are taking initiatives to make sure that our travel is as responsible as possible. We want to make sure that we're adhering to industry best practices. Excuse me. And one of the biggest things is that we are working towards and challenging travel industry partners to step up responsible sourcing of food and beverages.
Yeah, mate, that's so much in there to unpack. That's
Yes.
very cool. Could you also maybe just highlight a few examples of some of the programs that you do have in place?
For sure. There's a lot in the program, and I'm really just skimming the surface. But one of the big aspects that I had firsthand experience with is our Taste of Place program. So in 2018, we were building this program and launched it on our Newfoundland circumnavigation in 2019. So this is a culinary program where we look at the local gastronomy of the places that we visit. And the big theme here is to learn from the food producers, so the fishers and the farmers. You get to meet them and greet them and learn from them and understand their craft. And then, of course, the big part of it would be trying their local food. So this would be locally caught and traditionally made. So a couple examples from trips that I was on. This is from that Newfoundland circumnavigation trip. So the gentleman on the left is Rick Stanley. He's a scuba diver, and he came on board with a scuba diving group on an Adventure Canada expedition. They dove down near Francois and pulled up, I think, 400 scallops, which were then barbecued and served to our guests on board. So, about as fresh as you can get. And then more recently, in September of last year, I was on board out over the Northwest Passage, and the hotel manager saw some fishermen doing long line catching of halibut, and we went out and bought 1,500 pounds, and that was on the dinner plate for our guests that evening.
That was amazing.
Just a little highlight. Yeah, exactly.
I know, so this was your last trip, right? I know you've got a few more images that you took yourself from this last trip.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it would be nice to showcase the Out of the Northwest Passage trip. It's goes very remote. We go as far north as we can, really, until we hit sea ice, and we go to some really, really beautiful communities. So this is a place called Uummannaq in Greenland. It is in Uummannaq Fjord, and the mountain is called Uummannaq Mountain, which means heart-shaped rock. And you can see it shrouded in some clouds there, some low-lying clouds. Really, really stunning, beautiful location to visit. Nice community. And then very much so not a community, Cap York. This is out in the middle of nowhere. I was out on the land for this one, not driving zodiacs, and I led a group of hikers all the way up. You can actually see some of them returning in the distance here, and we went all the way up onto the Greenland ice cap, right up in the back there. Really, really beautiful spot. I think this is one of my favorite photos from the entire season last year. So.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you. Any plans? Are you going on any trips this year?
Typically, I'll be on 2 trips a year. This year, my wife and I are giving birth. Well, she'll be giving birth, and I'll be supporting. So no travel this year. We'll be at home.
Different adventure for you this year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Land-based one. Thank you so much, Martin. It's just such an amazing bucket list product, all those options there with the itineraries. Thank you. Hope you guys have had some inspiration from that. There are a couple of questions in there for Martin. We're going to bring him back on at the end because we'll keep going with the updates now. So Martin, thank you so much.